Hello everyone, welcome to History at Bedtime. Tonight, we journey quietly into the vast steppes of Mongolia, where the wind sweeps endlessly across grasslands and the sun glimmers on distant mountains, and where one man's choices, both in love and power, would ripple across continents and generations. A world where loyalty, ambition, and intimacy were intertwined with conquest, and where personal relationships could shape empires as profoundly as armies or laws. A gentle warning: this story may make the past feel startlingly vivid. You probably won't make it through this day without imagining the vast landscapes, the campfires, or the subtle dramas of hearts and alliances. And that's exactly the point. Let curiosity soften the edges of the present and allow yourself to drift alongside the people whose lives intertwined with one of history's greatest leaders. Take a deep, calming breath. Let your shoulders relax. Let the day slip softly away. Now, let's ease into tonight's journey. Tonight, we will follow Genghis Khan not only across the sweeping steppes and into distant cities, but also into the quieter, more intimate corners of his life, his relationships, alliances, and personal choices that shaped empires in ways both subtle and profound. We'll discover the human side of a legendary conqueror and let the rhythm of history, courage, and ambition gently guide you towards sleep. You walk along the wind-swept steppes of Mongolia, the air crisp and faintly carrying the scent of horse sweat and wildflowers. The sun is just brushing the horizon, painting the endless grass with gold, and you feel a quiet anticipation, like the world is holding its breath. Today, we wander not among armies or conquests, but in the softer, often overlooked world of Genghis Khan's personal life. A word of warning: this day may unravel more secrets than you expected, and honestly, you probably won't make it through it without feeling a little fascinated. Before we dive too deeply, a gentle nudge. If you enjoy stories that let you relax and learn at the same time, consider liking this video and subscribing to History at Bedtime. Also, feel free to leave a comment sharing your location and local time. We like to see history travel the globe alongside our viewers. Now, let's ease into tonight's journey. Genghis Khan, born as Temujin around 1162, grew up amid tribal wars, harsh winters, and a constant negotiation of loyalty. He would eventually unite the Mongol tribes and reshape Eurasia. But even he started small, worrying over survival, rival clans, and perhaps love. Historians still debate whether Temujin's early romantic relationships influenced his political alliances, but one thing is certain: his personal connections often intertwined with his rise to power. You hear the distant clatter of hooves, early scouts, or perhaps just the wind brushing over the uneven terrain, but your attention is drawn to a young Temujin learning the subtle art of persuasion and charm. Among the Mongols, marriages were often political tools, solidifying alliances between clans. But Temujin, with a mind sharper than a steppe knife, seemed to also value affection, or at least strategic intimacy, in ways his peers sometimes underestimated. Interestingly, he reportedly had a soft spot for strong, independent women. Take Boti, his first and most famous wife, who was kidnapped early in their marriage by a rival tribe. Temujin's response was not just a straightforward raid. He mobilized allies, navigated treacherous territory, and demonstrated a form of loyalty that historians say may have cemented his reputation among both men and women. And yes, even in these rough landscapes, there's room for romance, albeit the kind that involves horses, swords, and a healthy dash of strategy. You notice the way the grasses sway rhythmically, almost as if nodding to the idea that personal relationships shaped history, not just battles. Temujin's decisions in love were not trivial. They influenced alliances, succession, and even how future generations would view the Mongol Empire. A tiny cultural tidbit: Mongol lovers sometimes exchanged gifts, like elaborate necklaces made from eagle claws. Yes, very romantic in a slightly terrifying way. And as you follow Temujin along these dusty paths, imagine him juggling courtship, politics, and the weight of expectations from family and clan elders. Some nights he may have stared at the stars, wondering if loyalty, love, or conquest mattered most. Maybe you felt that way after a long day too. The morning fog lifts, revealing a wider landscape where mountains rise like silent sentinels, and you feel the chill tug at your sleeves. Temujin's life wasn't all strategy and formality. Love in the Mongol steppe was a blend of practicality, charm, and occasional chaos. You walk with him now, noticing the tension in his shoulders, the way his eyes scan the horizon, not for enemies this time, but perhaps for a safe path to rescue Boti. By his early 20s, Temujin had already begun forming alliances through marriage, a tactic as ancient as the tribes themselves. Yet he approached this with a curious balance, pragmatism tempered by emotional intelligence. Scholars still debate whether his marriages were purely strategic or a genuine pursuit of companionship. Either way, the effects were dramatic. Each union strengthened his network, giving him leverage to unite clans that previously fought each other over grazing lands and water sources. You hear the soft murmur of a river nearby and notice young Mongol women practicing archery, a skill Temujin would have admired. The Mongol steppe allowed for women warriors, though rarely were they recognized in the historical records. It's an obscure fact that some of his wives commanded troops or managed logistics while he led campaigns, showing that romance and governance were not mutually exclusive. And then there's the small, human side of him, revealed in gestures historians note only in passing. Letters sent with thoughtful words, gifts that traveled across miles, and stories shared around fires. It paints a picture of a leader who, beneath the armor and titles, was also a man attentive to bonds, affection, and loyalty. One peculiar cultural tidbit: Mongol betrothals sometimes included mock battles where young couples demonstrated courage and coordination before families gave their blessing. Perhaps it was a metaphor, or maybe just a clever way to make sure your potential spouse didn't faint at the first sight of a sword. As the sun climbs higher, you can almost see Temujin strategizing love like he would a battle, carefully, calculating risk, but with a twinkle of humor when things went sideways. You notice your own pulse slow as the narrative carries you forward, a gentle rhythm like the steppe winds brushing against your face. By the end of this morning, it's clear Genghis Khan's love life was not a sidebar. It was intertwined with history itself. Decisions about whom to marry, whom to trust, and how to show loyalty often rippled outward, affecting alliances, power, and the course of the Mongol Empire. Even amidst conquests and harsh winters, love mattered. Sometimes in life-saving ways, sometimes in ways we're only beginning to understand. The late afternoon sun drapes the steppes in a warm golden glow, and you feel the soft crunch of grass beneath your boots as you walk beside Temujin. There's a subtle rhythm to this landscape, the same rhythm that guides the Mongols across vast distances and shapes their daily lives. You notice how he studies the horizon, not for immediate threats, but for potential paths that could reunite him with Boti. This isn't just a tale of love, it's a story of strategy, patience, and the quiet power of loyalty. One major historical fact to settle into: Genghis Khan's marriage to Boti cemented a key alliance with the Ongurat tribe, which would provide critical support in the early stages of his rise to power. Another, he had multiple wives and concubines, which was standard for Mongol leaders, but each union came with careful consideration of tribal politics and social influence. Think of it as the ancient equivalent of assembling a multi-department team, but with more horses and fewer coffee breaks. You hear the laughter of children in the distance, perhaps playing games that mimic cavalry battles, their small bows and wooden swords clashing in harmless pretend combat. In the Mongol steppe, family life often involved everyone contributing to survival, from hunting to herd management, giving you a sense that love and labor were inseparable, an obscure cultural tidbit. Some Mongol wives maintained their own warrior shields, even if they rarely entered full battle, showcasing their agency in a male-dominated society. Temujin's gaze lingers on a distant hill where wild horses graze, imagining the logistics of moving his people while keeping alliances intact. Scholars still debate whether his emotional intelligence or sheer force of will played a larger role in uniting the tribes. You, the quiet observer, feel that both were necessary, one for the heart, one for the sword. And now a small wink of irony. Despite all these careful plans, you can almost picture him slipping on a muddy slope, a reminder that even the greatest leaders have humbling moments. It's a humanizing thought that lulls you deeper into the steppe, a gentle pull into the slower rhythms of history. Evening settles over the horizon, painting the grass in shades of violet and deep orange. You follow Temujin as he visits a small encampment of allied clans. There's the scent of smoked meat in the air, mingling with firewood and horse sweat, a combination that, strangely enough, feels both comforting and adventurous. You realize that the Mongol lifestyle wasn't just about raids or warfare. It was deeply social, anchored by familial ties, hospitality, and loyalty. A major historical fact: Bertie's rescue after her kidnapping involved complex negotiations and coordinated raids, showcasing not only Temujin's tactical brilliance, but also his commitment to those he loved. Another, the Mongols valued loyalty above all, with betrayal often punished severely, but allegiance rewarded with trust, land, or influence. You can imagine how personal attachments and strategic alliances often overlapped, blurring the lines between romance and politics. Mongol couples sometimes gifted each other intricately carved bone dice, both as tokens of affection and entertainment during long, windy nights. Even amidst the sprawling steppe, moments of playful intimacy mattered, a reminder that humans have always sought connection and amusement. You notice Temujin consulting his advisors and wives, a mix of discussion, debate, and laughter. Scholars still debate whether he was unusually progressive for including women in decision-making or simply pragmatic. Either way, it's clear that these interactions shaped not just his personal life, but also the strategies that would later define his empire. And here comes a subtle, gentle joke for your imagination. While Temujin coordinated logistics and rescue missions, you can picture a young scribe scribbling notes, hoping his ink doesn't run in the wind, a tiny mishap that could make him the most relatable historian of all time. The sky darkens, the stars beginning to shimmer faintly, and you feel the calm spread across the steppe, like the evening itself. Temujin's life is a blend of the harsh and the tender, the strategic and the affectionate, the monumental and the unexpectedly human. Each step, each relationship, each careful choice threads together into a tapestry that history still studies with awe and curiosity. The chill of early morning brushes against your face as you step into the camp once more. The dew glimmers faintly on the grass, each droplet catching the first rays of sunlight like tiny mirrors. You hear the distant clatter of hooves as scouts ride out to survey the plains, their silhouettes sharp against the rising sun. There's a sense of calm, but beneath it, the careful machinery of a burgeoning empire hums quietly, like a clock waiting to strike. You probably won't make it through this day without feeling a touch of awe, but that's perfectly fine because this is your moment to settle in. Two major historical facts anchor this morning. Genghis Khan reorganized the Mongol army into units of tens, hundreds, and thousands, a structure that allowed for remarkable flexibility and coordination. He also promoted people based on merit rather than lineage, which was revolutionary in a world where family name often determined one's entire life trajectory. It's almost like modern corporate restructuring, except with more arrows and fewer PowerPoints. An obscure cultural tidbit: Mongol warriors often carried small, portable eagles or falcons, not just for hunting, but as symbols of status and foresight. It's a detail that seems almost whimsical in contrast to the weighty matters of conquest and politics. Scholars still debate whether this practice was purely practical or partly ceremonial, a bit like wondering if your neighbor waters their garden for the vegetables or the aesthetic Instagram photo. You notice a small tent where Temujin's personal advisors are hunched over maps, whispering and pointing. Behind them, a few of his wives are sketching notes and tallying provisions. You realize that love, strategy, and survival are tightly interwoven in this world, and there's a small, almost amusing image in your mind: someone misplacing a feathered arrow and stepping on it, making a tiny squeak that echoes across the camp, a gentle reminder that life, even at its most monumental, is often punctuated by absurd little moments. The morning stretches lazily across the steppe, and you feel the soft pull of curiosity mixed with relaxation. Each careful arrangement, each whispered plan, each glance toward Boti threads together into the larger story that unfolds across these vast plains, waiting for your attention and imagination. By midday, the sun warms the soil beneath your feet, and you notice the gentle sway of the yurts as the wind brushes past. You walk alongside Temujin as he observes a training session where young warriors practice mounted archery. There's a rhythm to the movement, the thud of hooves, the twang of bowstrings that seems to echo across the entire steppe. You feel almost hypnotized, the repetition both soothing and mesmerizing, as if the entire world has paused to teach patience and precision. Two major historical facts for this moment. Mongol warriors trained extensively on horseback from a very young age, making them some of the most formidable cavalry forces in history. They also used composite bows made from horn, wood, and sinew, allowing arrows to fly faster and farther than most contemporary weapons could manage. Think of it as the difference between a go-kart and a Formula One car, except with more dramatic flair and fewer seatbelts. Some Mongol youths would race across the plains with small bundles of wool on their heads, a test of balance, agility, and endurance, essential for long campaigns and epic chases. You can almost picture the chaos of wind-blown hair, tumbling wool, and triumphant cheers. Historians still debate whether these games were strictly for training or a kind of step-style entertainment, a mix of both strategy and fun. You glance at Temujin's face as he watches his warriors, and there's a subtle smile, a hint of satisfaction, of pride, of a man who understands that leadership is measured not only in battles won, but in moments cultivated, whether through discipline, love, or laughter. And perhaps most ironically, the smallest horse stumbles and sends its rider tumbling gently into the dust, eliciting a shared chuckle. It's a quiet reminder that even history's great conquerors were surrounded by little human and horse antics. As the sun arcs higher, you feel the warmth seep into your shoulders and the gentle pull of relaxation through your chest. The steppe is alive, full of stories, and you're invited to wander slowly through its layers, letting each echo of hoofbeat and whispered plan lull you further into a calm, attentive drowse. As evening approaches, the sky stretches wide across the steppe, turning shades of amber and rose, as if the horizon itself is blushing. You walk past the tents and see the camp settling into a quieter rhythm. Fires flicker, smoke curls lazily toward the darkening sky, and the horses nuzzle each other with soft snorts. There's a strange comfort in this transition, the way day slowly folds into night, almost like a storyteller lowering the volume of a grand tale to a gentle murmur. You probably won't make it through this day without noticing how much life hums even in stillness. But it's perfectly fine because you're here to breathe it in. Two historical facts anchor this evening. Genghis Khan held regular councils with his generals, often around fires at night, to discuss strategy and morale, demonstrating that leadership was as much about listening as it was about command. He also implemented a system of relay posts and mounted couriers, which allowed messages to travel hundreds of miles in days, a remarkable feat for the 13th century. Think of it as medieval express mail, but with more horses and fewer tracking numbers. An unusual cultural tidbit. It was customary for Mongol warriors to sing or hum softly as they tended to the fire or groomed their horses, both as a way to pass time and as a subtle form of meditation. You can almost hear a soft, haunting tune drifting across the plain, a lullaby for the warriors themselves. Scholars still debate whether these melodies carried messages or were simply an exercise in camaraderie, leaving us with a hint of mystery amid the warmth of the glow. A small moment catches your eye. Bote quietly adjusts a blanket around a young child, her fingers gentle and deliberate, as if she's stitching care into every fold. You notice Temujin observing, his expression a mix of admiration and thoughtfulness. Even conquerors are tethered to small acts of love, you think, and perhaps it's these moments that quietly shape the course of history. There's a hint of humor too, as one horse decides to snatch a bit of roasting meat from a nearby spit, and a chorus of murmured laughter rises from the camp. As night deepens, the firelight casts long, flickering shadows across the ground. You feel the calm, the soft rhythm of breathing horses and resting warriors, and you realize how the enormous, sweeping movements of empire coexist with these tiny, intimate gestures, all held together by a quiet, enduring human pulse. Night has fully claimed the steppe, and the stars are scattered across the sky like spilled diamonds. You sit near a small fire, feeling the warmth against your face while the cold breeze brushes your neck. The scent of smoked meat mingles with the crisp night air, and somewhere in the distance, a wolf's howl punctuates the quiet. You probably won't make it through this evening without a sense of awe, but there's no rush, only the gentle unfolding of story and sleep. Two historical facts for this nocturnal tableau. Genghis Khan valued intelligence from spies and scouts as much as the strength of his warriors, often rewarding information that prevented ambushes or missteps. He also respected religious leaders of various faiths, allowing Buddhists, Muslims, and Christians to travel freely within his domains, a surprisingly progressive stance for a warlord of his time. A curious cultural tidbit: Mongol children would often sleep wrapped in the fur of camels or sheep, learning from an early age the sensations of warmth, texture, and protection, a preparation for life on the open steppe. Historians still debate how much of this practice was practical versus symbolic, leaving the image hovering in your mind like a soft, warm question mark. The fire flickers and throws playful shadows across the ground, and you notice Temujin quietly walking among his tents, checking on the camp and offering a nod or a quiet word to his people. There's a subtle, ironic humor in imagining that the man who would unite the Mongol tribes also had to remind his warriors to fetch more water or adjust a tether. You smile softly, appreciating the human side of historical legend. Above you, The stars pulse gently, almost in rhythm with your breathing, and the steppe seems to hold its collective breath. The combination of cool air, distant murmurs, and soft firelight creates a lullaby unique to this moment, a harmony of nature, empire, and human care. As your eyelids grow heavier, you sense the pulse of the past intertwining with your own present calm, and you let yourself drift, cradled by the stories of conquest, love, and the quiet moments in between. The wind shifts slightly, carrying the faint scent of distant grasslands and smoke from a neighboring camp. You walk along the edge of the steppe, feeling the uneven earth beneath your feet, each step a quiet reminder of the vastness around you. Fires flicker like tiny constellations scattered across the horizon, reflecting the rhythm of life in a world where every dawn brings both possibility and peril. You probably won't make it through this stretch of night without pausing to marvel at the enormity of it all. But that's exactly why you're here. Two historical facts gently anchor your imagination. Genghis Khan established a codified legal system known as the yasa, which regulated everything from theft to military conduct, shaping the Mongol Empire in ways that extended far beyond mere battlefield victories. He also reorganized the army into units of tens, hundreds, and thousands, creating an efficient, loyal, and highly mobile fighting force that could strike with precision across the steppe. A peculiar cultural tidbit: Mongol warriors often played a strategy game called shatter, a primitive form of chess, in the evenings to hone their tactical thinking. You can almost see them huddled around rough wooden boards, their eyes narrowing in concentration, occasionally breaking into a grin when an opponent blunders. Scholars still debate whether shatter influenced Genghis Khan's military genius or was simply an entertaining pastime, leaving a little riddle for history buffs to ponder. You notice the faint clop of hooves as couriers move swiftly through the camp, carrying news or supplies. Temujin stands briefly on a low rise, silhouetted against the glowing fires, and the sight carries both authority and a surprising warmth. His expression is focused, yet there's a subtle twinkle, almost as if he's thinking, let's hope nobody trips over a horse tonight. Small moments like these remind you that even the builders of empires exist amid the mundane, the slightly absurd, and the quietly human. As your gaze drifts back across the steppe, the harmony of night, firelight, and soft murmurs wraps around you, a gentle lullaby that blends courage with curiosity, conquest with calm. You feel yourself sinking slowly into the rhythm of the Mongol night, letting history fold around you like a well-worn blanket. A faint mist rises from the grass as midnight approaches, softening the outlines of tents and distant fires. You tread carefully, mindful of both the living and the sleeping, feeling the steppe beneath your feet like a wide breathing carpet. The air is crisp, carrying the occasional scent of roasted meat, horse leather, and smoke, forming a sensory mosaic that is uniquely Mongol. You probably won't make it through this hour without feeling the pulse of life in the quiet, small, intimate, yet remarkably vast. Two historical facts guide your evening wanderings. Genghis Khan encouraged trade along the Silk Road, understanding that wealth and knowledge traveled as effectively as armies, fostering connections across continents. He also used marriages strategically, allying with neighboring tribes through carefully arranged unions, blending diplomacy with domestic life in a way that strengthened his rule. An obscure cultural tidbit: Mongol warriors sometimes used small, decorated gourds as whistles or signaling devices during hunts and battles. The sound, both practical and oddly melodic, carrying across the open plains. Historians still debate whether these whistles were more ceremonial or functional, leaving a soft, lingering mystery in the night air. In one tent, you see a group of young warriors quietly practicing archery, their arrows thudding into makeshift targets. A tiny irony presents itself as one archer fumbles, and it's nothing but a sleeping dog which opens one eye and lets out a resigned bark. The laughter that follows is subtle but genuine, echoing in the crisp night like a reminder that humor exists, even in disciplined training. You take a slow breath and glance skyward. Stars scatter across the heavens, mirrored in the faint glimmers of firelight. Everything feels measured and infinite at once. The relentless ambition of an empire balanced against soft, fleeting moments of care, laughter, and quiet reflection. You feel your mind relaxing, your heartbeat sinking with the rhythm of the night, and for a moment, it's easy to imagine that the steppe itself is whispering stories only you can hear. Dawn is a gentle suggestion rather than an abrupt arrival. You walk through the early light, soft and golden, brushing across the steppe like silk. The world seems slightly hushed, not yet awake, as though it knows the day will bring both movement and strategy, conquest and conversation. You probably won't make it through this day without pausing to appreciate the quiet, but that's exactly the point. Two historical facts settle around you like the warm weight of a blanket. Genghis Khan implemented a sophisticated relay system for messengers known as the yam, allowing news, commands, and trade information to travel at unprecedented speed across his empire. He also ensured religious tolerance, famously permitting Buddhists, Muslims, Christians, and shamans alike to practice freely under his rule, which helped unify his sprawling domain. A quirky cultural tidbit drifts across the mist. Mongol hunters sometimes wore bird feathers in their hair to signal rank or family lineage, and you can't help but smile at the thought of a fierce warrior with an extravagant feather bobbing in the wind. Scholars still debate whether this was strictly symbolic or partially practical, leaving a trace of mystery fluttering like a feather in the steppe breeze. You notice the soft sound of hooves and leather armor as warriors prepare for the day's exercises. In a corner, a young rider struggles with a stubborn horse, the animal swishing its tail in what might be considered early protest. You feel the gentle irony here, the greatest conqueror of the world, and yet even he cannot command the whims of a horse. The light strengthens, warming your shoulders and illuminating the intricate patterns of tents, hides, and flags. You breathe in slowly, letting the quiet energy of early morning Mongol life seep into your bones. The empire feels both colossal and intimate, a delicate balance of order, chaos, humor, and heart, all wrapped in the soft dawn of a steppe that stretches endlessly in every direction. By mid-morning, the camp hums with life, though nothing seems rushed. You stroll past tents and fires, past the faint smell of oats, leather, and wood smoke. You probably won't make it through this hour without feeling like a tiny, privileged observer in a grand living tapestry. Two historical facts anchor this vibrant picture. Genghis Khan personally inspected his troops, ensuring loyalty and competence, a practice that contributed to his army's remarkable cohesion. He also promoted individuals based on merit rather than family connections, a revolutionary practice in a world where birth often determined destiny. An unusual cultural tidbit arises as children play with small clay figures shaped like horses and warriors, mimicking battles they will one day witness in reality. Historians still debate whether these miniature exercises served merely for amusement or subtly trained the next generation of Mongol strategists, leaving a gentle question hovering in the air. The scene has a tiny, ironic twist. A general accidentally trips over a wagon wheel while demonstrating formation techniques, earning a chuckle from the youngest trainees. Even in an empire where discipline reigns, laughter finds a way, softening the edges of ambition. You pause near a tent where maps are being drawn, lines crisscrossing the steppe with meticulous care. The ink is slightly smudged, but that imperfection only adds a human touch to the grand designs of conquest. You feel the calm rhythm of life here, ambitious yet gentle, strategic yet playful. In this moment, the sprawling empire is not a distant abstraction, but a living, breathing mosaic, each piece imbued with both the weight of history and the softness of human experience. The late morning sun spreads lazily across the steppe, highlighting the dust stirred by hoofs and the glint of metal from armor polished just enough to impress, but not obsessively. You walk slowly, letting your fingers brush the coarse grass, feeling the warmth rise from the earth. You probably won't make it through this hour without imagining the scent of horse sweat mingled with fresh bread being baked over open fires. Two historical facts settle around you like gentle clouds. Genghis Khan's army was famously mobile, capable of marching over 100 miles in a single day, a feat that left enemies bewildered and terrified. He implemented a system of units called Arban and Suan, organizing 10, 100, or 1,000 soldiers into highly flexible groups, a structure that allowed small squads to operate independently while still serving a grand strategy. A peculiar cultural tidbit rises from the flurry of activity. Warriors sometimes tattooed small symbols on their bodies to honor victories or remember fallen comrades, blending both ritual and record-keeping in one quiet act. Scholars still debate the exact meaning behind many of these marks, leaving the stories behind them whispered rather than known. Near the edge of the camp, you notice an older scout adjusting a bow with exaggerated care, muttering instructions as though the arrows themselves might misbehave. There's irony in the scene. You feel the same meticulous attention to detail in everyday life. Yet here, even the mightiest empire depends on tiny, fragile sticks of wood and feather. As you wander further, the horizon stretches endlessly, the light soft and golden, the wind carrying both dust and faint laughter from children running past. In these open spaces, the empire feels intimate, even tender. Each footstep, each conversation, each glance carries weight. But there is also room for lightness, for humor, for the quiet pleasures of ordinary moments in a world known for extraordinary ambition. By early afternoon, the camp takes on a rhythm that is almost musical. The clip-clop of hooves, the low murmur of traders and scribes, the gentle slap of fabric in tents swaying with the breeze. You probably won't make it through this hour without noticing the subtle choreography of daily life, a dance that balances discipline with a touch of whimsy. Two historical facts float in the air. Genghis Khan's legal code, known as the yasa, was surprisingly progressive, addressing theft, military conduct, and even environmental protection. In a time when such rules were rare, he relied heavily on intelligence networks, sending spies and scouts far ahead to gather information, ensuring that every decision was informed by accurate knowledge of distant lands. An unusual cultural tidbit emerges. Mongol women sometimes rode alongside warriors, carrying supplies and offering counsel, their presence both practical and symbolic, reflecting a society where women wielded notable influence in certain spheres. Historians still debate how extensive this influence truly was, though the whispers of it reach even now, centuries later. You notice a young scribe attempting to capture the chaos on parchment, ink smudging across the edges as his quill wobbles in the afternoon heat. There is a subtle, ironic humor here. The sprawling empire, the relentless march of history, and yet all of it can be paused, even interrupted by a clumsy stroke of ink. As the light softens, shadows stretch long and gentle across the tents and animals resting under them. You feel a sense of calm, of intimacy, with a world that is otherwise known for storms of conquest. In this moment, history is not something distant or harsh. It is tactile, soft, and strangely comforting, carrying both the weight of ambition and the ease of ordinary life in a golden sunlit pause. The late afternoon sun drifts lazily across the camp, painting the steppe in soft oranges and pinks, as if the world itself is sighing in relief. You walk along a path where the dust sparkles in the sunlight, feeling it settle lightly on your hands. You probably won't make it through this hour without imagining the smell of roasting meat mingling with the crisp scent of the open plains, a feast of both simplicity and survival. Two historical facts float gently into your mind. Genghis Khan instituted a postal relay system called the Yam, which allowed messages to travel hundreds of miles in days, a precursor to modern communication in its ingenuity. He also promoted meritocracy, rewarding talent and loyalty over noble birth, a radical idea that strengthened loyalty and created opportunities for commoners within the empire. A quirky cultural tidbit whispers past. Mongol archers often slept with their bows nearby, believing their dreams could be influenced by their weapons' presence, a blend of superstition and devotion that makes perfect sense if you've ever mislaid your keys. Scholars still debate how seriously these beliefs were observed versus how much they were stories told to outsiders. You notice children attempting to mimic warriors, their tiny hands wielding sticks as if they were deadly arrows, laughter ringing out across the plain. There's a subtle irony here. While empires rise and fall and strategies shift like sand, the simple joy of play persists, bridging centuries in its universality. The horizon stretches wide, clouds lazily drifting as if they too are part of the empire, indifferent to conquests and codes. The steppe feels vast yet intimate, a space where even the grandest ambitions are tempered by wind, light, and the gentle rhythm of daily life. You pause to watch a herd of horses grazing, their calm energy grounding the chaos of history in a soft, enduring reality. Evening descends slowly, the sun folding behind distant hills, spilling gold and lavender across the steppe. You probably won't make it through this hour without hearing the faint chorus of evening, the rustle of tents, the creak of wagon wheels, and the occasional soft whinny of horses settling in for the night. Two historical facts emerge, like quiet lanterns in the twilight. Genghis Khan's military tactics relied heavily on psychological warfare, spreading fear through rapid movements, feigned retreats, and surprise attacks, often winning battles before swords were even drawn. He encouraged religious tolerance across his empire, allowing Buddhists, Muslims, Christians, and shamans to practice freely, a practical policy that maintains stability and loyalty across vast and diverse populations. An unusual cultural tidbit floats by. Some Mongol warriors believed that singing while riding could help the horses maintain rhythm and endurance, blending artistry and necessity in a way that seems almost like music for survival. Historians still debate whether this was common practice or simply poetic exaggeration recorded by travelers. You notice an older warrior strumming a rudimentary instrument by the fire, humming a tune that echoes lightly across the tent. There is a faint, ironic humor in the juxtaposition. The same empire, feared for its relentless conquests, also holds moments where a single note can calm both horse and man alike. As darkness deepens, the steppe feels vast yet comforting, a cradle of shadows, wind, and quiet. You feel the history beneath your feet, the lives and choices that shaped centuries, softened by the dimming light and the gentle rhythm of evening. Even in a world defined by conquest, there is space for peace, laughter, and a moment's pause before tomorrow's journey resumes, carrying the promise of more stories unfolding under endless skies. Night drifts across the steppe like a soft woolen blanket, stars flickering gently above, each one a silent witness to the empire below. You walk past tents where shadows dance on canvas walls, candlelight flickering in rhythm with the whispers of the wind. You probably won't make it through this night without imagining the faint clatter of armor being cleaned, the low hum of conversation, and the comforting scent of wood smoke curling through the camp. Two historical facts ease into your thoughts like gentle breezes. Genghis Khan's armies used highly organized cavalry units with strict chain of command, allowing complex maneuvers that astonished rivals. He also codified laws known as the yasa, covering everything from theft to military discipline, a framework that bound the empire together with surprisingly modern efficiency. A curious cultural tidbit peeks through. Warriors sometimes tattooed symbols of protection on their arms or chests, believing the ink could shield them in battle, blending artistry with superstition. Scholars still debate whether these symbols were purely decorative, practical, or held genuine spiritual significance. By the fire, a young boy practices archery under the watchful eye of a veteran, both struggling to stifle giggles when arrows veer wildly, a light-hearted reminder that even the fiercest warriors were once clumsy beginners. There's a soft irony here. The empire feared for its ruthlessness, yet laughter persists in its heart, timeless and unyielding. The wind carries the scent of distant pastures, and the steppe stretches endlessly, both grounding and expansive. You feel history pressing gently against your senses, a quiet pulse of stories, triumphs, and ordinary life weaving together into the vast tapestry of human endeavor. The night, vast and infinite, invites calm reflection as the day's intensity fades into a gentle lull. Deep into the night, the camp settles into quiet rhythms. Horses shift in their stables. The occasional soft snore punctuates the silence, and lanterns flicker like miniature stars below the sky. You probably won't make it through this section without imagining the gentle scrape of wooden tools, the faint metallic scent of horse tack, and the warm glow of firelight brushing canvas walls. Two historical facts float gently into your mind. Genghis Khan expanded trade across the Silk Road, connecting China, Persia, and Europe, a vast network that encouraged cultural exchange and economic growth. He also implemented relay stations with fresh horses for messengers, allowing news to travel astonishing distances, far faster than most of the world could imagine at the time. A playful cultural tidbit emerges. Warriors sometimes carried small charms or trinkets in their saddlebags, believing these tiny objects brought luck or favor in battle, a touch of whimsy amidst the serious business of empire. Historians still debate whether these were common superstition or clever morale tools crafted by commanders. Nearby, a few soldiers quietly share stories of earlier campaigns, exaggerating each detail just enough to provoke a chuckle or a shake of the head. There's irony in their camaraderie. The same people who shaped empires and instilled fear across continents also find joy in simple, shared tales beneath a quiet sky. The steppe at night is both intimate and infinite, shadows softening the harshness of reality, and a gentle hush descends. You feel your mind settle into the rhythm of wind, firelight, and quiet movement, a perfect backdrop for reflection, dreams, and the slow unfolding of history beneath the stars. The early hours of dawn tiptoe across the steppe, brushing the tents with pale gold light. You walk through the camp slowly, feeling the crunch of frost underfoot, hearing the soft snorts of horses waking from their dreams, and inhaling the crisp scent of morning mixed with lingering smoke, you probably won't make it through this day without imagining the clatter of armor being polished, the soft murmur of strategists discussing distant conquests, and the occasional whistle of a bird greeting the sun. Two historical facts settle into your mind gently. Genghis Khan's empire was notable for religious tolerance, allowing Buddhists, Muslims, Christians, and shamans to coexist, a progressive feature rare for the time. He also valued merit over birthright, promoting generals and advisors based on skill rather than family lineage, a system that often upset traditional hierarchies but strengthened loyalty and efficiency. A curious cultural tidbit appears. Some soldiers practiced falconry, believing the bird's flight mirrored the swiftness of their own cavalry, blending hunting with subtle symbolism. Scholars still debate whether falconry was widely practiced or largely ceremonial among elite warriors. As you pass a small group of soldiers sharing tea from clay cups, one of them attempts a joke about a horse who refuses to march, prompting quiet laughter. There's subtle irony here. The creators of vast empires could still find amusement in a stubborn animal, a reminder that even history's largest figures had moments of levity. The morning sun warms the steppe slowly, the shadows retreat, and the empire feels vast yet intimate. You notice small details, the glint of sunlight on metal, the gentle sway of tents, the quiet companionship among men who've traveled continents together, painting a picture of life that is both monumental and gently human. As the day progresses, the camp becomes a tapestry of movement and stillness, soldiers preparing for drills while others rest beneath canvas awnings. You probably won't make it through this moment without sensing the soft rhythm of life. Hooves shifting, tents rustling, the faint scent of bread baking in communal ovens, and the muted laughter of shared stories. Two historical facts settle into your mind softly. Genghis Khan's legal code forbade theft of livestock, reflecting the critical importance of animals in a nomadic economy. He also established a network of spies and intelligence, allowing him to anticipate threats and opportunities with remarkable foresight, often turning potential disasters into strategic advantages. A playful cultural tidbit drifts in. Some warriors use small, hand-carved wooden charms, shaped like animals to mark their belongings. Combining artistry with practicality, historians still debate whether these were simply decorative or held deeper symbolic meaning. You pause to notice the gentle interplay of light and shadow across the steppe, the quiet camaraderie of soldiers sharing stories, the soft cooing of pigeons returning home. There's subtle humor in imagining the mighty conqueror himself, often far from these quiet moments, yet ultimately shaped by them. The sun begins to dip, and the world exhales. You feel the soft pull of the day's end, a gentle invitation to rest. The wind rustles through grass and canvas, carrying the faint warmth of the fire and the comforting rhythm of life, continuing its quiet course. Shadows stretch and yawn, blending into the calm of approaching night. The steppe settles into a soft, infinite hush. You feel the cool touch of evening brushing your skin, the gentle sway of grass beneath your feet, and the quiet heartbeat of a world that has known triumph and tragedy alike. Lanterns glow faintly in the distance, tiny golden orbs winking softly against the deepening blue of twilight. Horses shift in their stables with muted whispers, the faint metallic scent of tack and the earthy aroma of hay blending into a serene perfume. Stories from earlier days drift past your mind like leaves on a lazy stream. The laughter of soldiers at small mischiefs, the rhythmic tap of hoofbeats against fronds earth, the soft warmth of fires that have watched over generations. You remember the clatter of armor, the flutter of banners, the careful inscriptions of the yasa, all blending into the gentle hum of human endeavor. The sky deepens, stars twinkling with patient patience, each one a silent witness to centuries of life, ambition, and love. A thin breeze carries whispers of distant pastures, of falcons gliding above, and rivers winding like silver threads through the landscape, offering subtle comfort and the promise of quiet continuity. Your body feels the gentle pull of fatigue, the soft surrender to night, while your mind floats above history's vast panorama. There's no rush, no demand, just the measured cadence of existence. Quiet, reflective, and entirely your own. Even the mightiest conquerors could not command the rhythm of evening. And here, in this shared solitude, you rest alongside them in imagination. Let your eyes close, your breath lengthen, and your thoughts drift, slow as the wind over the endless steppe. Let the quiet settle into your bones, carrying you into dreams woven from starlight, soft fires, and the gentle, enduring pulse of human life. Tonight, the past hums a lullaby, and you're invited to follow its calming melody into rest. Thank you for joining me tonight. Hope you enjoyed the story. If you're not in a deep sleep by now, enjoy the peaceful fireplace background and drift into peace.